Hey everybody, nice to see you all here on a Saturday, actually. So myself Anish, I work here at Geektrust. I'm a software developer. I work primarily on our evaluation tool, which is Kodu.ai. Without further ado, let's get started about writing clean code. So just before we start about how to write clean code or why to write clean code, I want to talk about a little bit about how to approach Geektrust challenges. Some of you might be familiar with excuse me, some of you might be familiar with the competitive coding problem challenges. So do not think of it like that. When you're solving Geektrust coding challenges, think of it as you would if you were writing a production quality software. What are the concerns that go into production quality software? I think, yeah, that would be the mindset to be in while solving Geektrust coding challenges. So whenever you're reading through a Geektrust coding challenge, try to identify real world domains in the problem. This will help you model the solution well. As you read, try to identify nouns in the problem statement. Nouns usually translate well to classes or objects, or attributes, like for example customer or vehicle or person. These things give an indication that these might be classes. And Try and identify verbs. Verbs usually mean it's an operation or a behavior on some of these classes. Say move, pay, subscribe, yeah, things like that. And once you have these, you will be able to visualize different models and how they interact with each other to actually, and to actually solve the problem. And before you start solving Geektrust coding problems, do look at our help docs or build help docs just to get started. Like we expect that, you should be solving all the any of the Geektrust challenges offline. But we expect that you can use your favorite ID, but we expect that you read the input from a file. The path to the file you know as a is sent as an argument. I'll show you how to test your code in Geektrust in some time. So let's get started about writing clean code. You might be wondering, what is clean code? So it's simple. Any code that any developer, including you in the future, or your teammates, any developer who sees the code and they're able to easily understand it and make modifications on it, that's clean code. If you think about it, whenever you are writing a piece of software, whenever you're developing a feature, there are different thought process and concerns that go into it, right? What is the business context? What is the expected behavior? What errors to be handled? What might be the performance? There are different concerns, and if you are able to convey all these in a simple and easy to understand way, that is essentially what clean code is. It's That's what, yeah, essentially what clean code is, where all your concerns, everything is just easily understood just by reading the code. So now you might be wondering, why does clean code matter at all? Like, what's wrong with code that just simply works, right? The problem here is that code is never write once and forget. If that was the case, it might be okay. But the software, the product, whatever it might be, it's continuously evolving. Developers need to be able to work efficiently on a code base, and that means developers need to understand what is going on in the code, so that it's easy to make changes on it. Writing clean code helps with that. Writing clean code means the code is very easy to understand, and hence, as a result of it, the cost of maintenance comes down. You are able to make changes faster, without breaking things that are already working or introducing new bugs. And you are also able to fix any bugs that might exist faster, because now you understand what is going on, and you understand what to do about it. Yeah, and it's not just you. You don't write clean code just for you, but it's also for your teammates who might not have worked on the particular code base. Or you might be, whenever you read somebody else's code, if they have written clean code, you just thank them for it, right? It's very easy to understand. It's easy to make that bug fix. It's easy to add that new feature, and that's what we strive for when we know. And that's the reason why clean code actually matters. So, coming to some pointers, I'd like to share some pointers that I personally use on how to write clean code. The first most obvious thing to do with clean code is to write readable code. What does that mean? Is that when instead of giving your variables names like x, y, z, or class 1, class 2, you could give meaningful names to your classes, methods, and variables, which will convey the context and the expected behavior for, like, which is good enough. Like, you are able to read the name of the function or the class, and you are able to gauge what might be the expected behavior without even looking into the function, and that helps a lot. um, and that actually helps a lot. Yes, correct. So now, another thing you might have noticed is there are a lot of numbers, which we call magic numbers, sprinkled throughout the code. 500, 5, 10, 16, 8.5, without any context. These numbers might be sprinkled around, might be used multiple times without any context. And then it's not very clear as to why that number was chosen. And another problem would be, say you use number 8 in 5 places, and in 4 of the places it was in the 8 means something else, and in another place 8 means something else. And now you have to change, there is a business requirement. The 8 needs to be changed to, say, 12 for some reason. You blindly change all the 8s, and now you have actually introduced a bug, because one place it was not supposed to be. So what you should be doing is declaring constants with meaningful names, and using those constants in all the places you would need those numbers. What helps with that is it's easy to make changes, and it's easy to understand why that number was chosen as well. Another thing to do would be extracting conditional statements into variables or functions, variables or functions, which tells you what it means. I'll show you an example. So that would, this way it might be much more easier to understand what is happening. So imagine, like, you have a code like this. So what do you understand by this code? It's not very clear as to what this code is supposed to do. Why? What is P? Other than the fact that it's an alphabet in English, uh, language, we don't really have much context. It might be a string or an array, but like, what does P stand for? What does 4 and 16 mean? And why should length of the P be less than, greater than 4 and less than 16? Handle click. Okay, so is there only one button in the web page? A useful product might have multiple, buttons, and are we handling all the clicks? Probably not. It's particular to some specific button on the page, and so this code does not really convey what it does. We might have to put it in a debugger, or write print statements, or at least run it to see what this code does. If we refactored it into some code like this would actually be much more helpful for the developers, because now, even without running the code, you kind of understand what it happens. I'll start from the bottom, where the if statement is checking if the password is valid and you're passing in the password, then log in. I don't need to do anything else. It just reads like it's English language. We're just checking if the password is valid, and we're logging in. And the p dot length greater than 4 and p dot length greater than 16 was actually a logic to check if the password size is between 4 and 16. And that's what for so taking that and making it a function actually gave it much more context, and this way you could reuse it in multiple places if if that's a use case. And you actually took out 4 and 16, made it a constant. This way what happens is you understand now that it's the minimum and maximum limits of password. All this without running the code, or just look at it and boom, you understand what this code does. And that's really helpful for other developers, uh, in developers in general, or maintainers of a project in general. Some other idioms that I have come across is something like naming your variables like list A, B, list one, list two, or appending the type of the variable along with the variable name. These things actually are not helpful, because any powerful IDE today, like most modern IDEs, just hover over it and it will tell you what type it is. And just reading array list EMI list equals loan.get EMIs does not really, it might seem that it is a EMI from this line, but when you use it in code later on, you're just doing operations on a variable called list. It does not really convey what it means. You Instead, renaming the variable to something like EMIs or emails, where it actually makes sense as to what the contents of the variable is actually helpful. And yeah, it's actually helpful, really helpful for developers. Otherwise you might have to print to see what are the values, things like that. Here you get an idea without running anything. So another thing would be to keep things simple. I think it's abbreviated to KISS, KISS. Keep it simple, silly, or sometimes I've heard keep it simple, stupid. Not sure. Uh, Either way, the idea is to keep things simple. As a problem might have multiple ways to approach. There might be multiple solutions. It's very important that we actually choose solutions that are simple and easy to understand. This way the maintenance cost comes down. Essentially, I have seen, and I think I have might also been doing something like this earlier, where we are very proud of the clever piece of code that we might have you know uh, come across after optimizing the code very much. And that is a hindrance towards maintainability of the software. And um, you might think that that optimization that you did might be helping the software speed up somehow, but more often than not, there is no tangible benefit to that optimization unless it's necessary. So if you're really concerned about performance, you should actually be writing clean code, putting it in some sort of profiler, and checking where the bottleneck is, and then going about tuning it. uh, I read recently in a book by Kent Beck. It's called Refactoring, where he says it's easy to tune a well-factored code base for performance uh, than it is to write optimized code from the get-go. Firstly, you might not need to optimize it because there is no tangible benefit, and secondly, uh, you might actually be hindering your maintainability of the software. Yeah. So look at this example. For like it's supposed to filter users based on name, email, or role, which has to be actually told to you. We don't really understand how it goes about doing it. um, I see a piece of code like this, my head starts spinning, and I probably have to put it in some sort of debugger, or at least write some print statements to see what is happening. The first three lines might be simple enough to understand, but the result dot for each line item, this looks like an algorithm to me. Not sure what is happening here. And if there was a new requirement that came where I have to you know fix some bug or things like that, I might not be really confident about changing this until I am really sure why some convoluted algorithm like this was needed. for this. And there is subtle bugs as well, like if name, email, or role, all three have similar search string, there might be duplicated users as well in the array. These are very easy to hide. Like complicated code makes it easy for bugs to hide as well. So instead of writing something like this, it's okay. Nobody gets a clean code in that first iteration. The idea is to get things working and then refactor it so that it's clean enough that you yourself understands it down the line, and any other developers who see it. So even if this was your first iteration, and now you understand the problem well enough, now you have a working solution, maybe go ahead and see how you could simplify it. One thing to do with the previous code would be something like this. Just all you need to do is search on users name, email, and role, and using something like this makes it easy to understand. And the bug that I mentioned is not there here. And that's another lesson to take care of. Clean code makes it harder for bugs to hide. Yeah, so that's keep it simple. Keep it simple. Go for the easiest and simplest solution possible. Make life easier on yourself and your other developers. I guess that's basically the uh, message I'm going for. Modular code. Yeah. Okay. So modularity is actually the cornerstone of maintainable software. And if you think about it, it's not just in software, but in any useful product that you might see, in and around you. Say like your phone, laptop, TV, your bike, your car, anything for that matter. They're all modular. They all have component parts that are developed and tested individually and then combined together to form the whole that is useful. So, and the same principle applies to software as well, software development as well. If you write modular code, you don't need to wait for the entire feature to be ready to test that. You could just test that. You give some sort of input and you check if the expected output is correct. It's easily testable. You can isolate things, test things like that. Any bugs found could be easily resolved because now it's in a single module. To give you a real world example, I don't know how many of you might have seen this, but testing of rocket engines happens without the rocket. Like they make the engine and they test it, and they have some sort of uh, a hangar where they actually test the engine for its specifications. You don't actually fly the rocket to see if the engine is working fine or not. And that's the basic principle that we're going for here as well. So things should be tested individually and then combined to make sure that everything is working individually. And another advantage of this would be if somewhere along the line a better module comes along that does the same thing, you could just simply swap out the better version and everything else remains the same. Any changes are localized within the module. It's not spread around the code base where things might go breaking here and there. Yeah. So how do you write modular code? Uh, I guess the first thing you would do is have separation of concerns. You could have different layers for different concerns. Like view layer for user interface. Model layer where you have your domain models with business logic. Service layer that actually coordinates input coming from user with the actual business logic that has to be done. The data layer could have data transfer objects that looks at the business context, generates the output, gives it back to the service layer. You could have multiple layers. Most common being MVC, model view controller, where model is the business layer. It's surrounded by the service layer, and the service layer itself is surrounded by controller layer. And so keeping things separate is useful because if you have say user interface is not really concerned with business rules, right? Any change to business rule, there is no need to go poking around user interface layer, or user interfaces, and this way you're not breaking anything in user interface because you changed something in business logic. Similarly, anything you want to do with data layer, there's no need to poke around with user interface layer, things like that. There are yeah, so another way to organize your code for separation of concerns would be, like organizing everything by layer. There are two approaches here that are popular. One would be to have all the classes related to a single layer in a single folder. So all the controllers are within the same folder, all the entities are in the same folder, all the data transfer objects are in the same folder, all the repositories, you get the idea. This way, whenever you want to make a change in a layer, you know where to go look for. There is another style of organizing code, which is called entity style. Basically, you still have the layers. It's just that all the layers belonging to a single repository, belonging to a single model, resides within a package. So you could see that on the right hand side of the screen, where there is a guest model and all its layer, controller, entity, model, repository, service, all of it are within their, even though are within their own packages, they are encapsulated by the or wrapped by the guest package. And so either works, both of them are good. See what works best for you. I usually go with the left hand side things, and if things get too complicated, I might refactor it to the entity style. Yeah, so it's really up to you how you want to organize your code. Um, yeah, another very important principle to keep in mind would be something called single responsibility principle. What it says is that any class should have only one reason, and only one reason to change. What that means is every class should have only one job. And if you have too many responsibilities, it means you have too many classes, and you should actually be parsing out different responsibilities into different classes. It also applies to functions as well. Function should also be doing one thing and should be doing one thing well. If you do one thing, it is actually easy to do that well, rather than if you do five things, and it's very convoluted as to what the function or class is supposed to do. Yeah, because it's too many things happening. um, to give you an example, uh, take a class like book here, which has title, author, and it can actually turn the page, and it can also print the contents of the current page. Just looking at it, it seems like everything related to book only resides in book. So it might be following single responsible principle. But then you see there is a new requirement where I want to print the contents of the page as an HTML. This is where you actually see that printing the contents of the page is not really the concern or the responsibility of the book, because printing, be it printing as HTML, be it printing as plain text, maybe you want to print it in a Kindle format, anything, has nothing to do with the book. The contents of the book, the author never changes. Just because you change the format, it does not mean the contents of the uh, actual core details about the book changes. And so you identify that printing is actually a different responsibility that should not, the book should not be handling that, book class should not be handling that. A way to improve upon this code would be having say a printer interface. And I'll tell you why we might need something like printer interface. You could simply say, hey, just write two classes, printer, HTML printer, and plain text printer, and just print the page. Get the book, print it as the format you need. Um, Writing, implementing to an interface actually helps here, because one, you could actually define the expected behaviors, and two, it also follows a principle called open close principle. It basically means things or classes should be open for extension, but closed for modification unless there is a bug, in which case you have to go. So we don't want to disturb plain text printer whenever there is a request for HTML printer. Like, I don't want to go check, do a generic text printer function that checks what was the request and then if else. Doing too many if else is, again, hinders your ability to comprehend the code. So that's why, writing to an interface and implementing the interface. What happens is, tomorrow if somebody else comes and tells me, hey, we need to print it in some sort of Kindle format, or we need to beautify it like this or like that, you could add one more class that implements the same printer behavior and go about doing it, and nothing before that came before it is affected. You can be sure that you did not introduce any bugs on printer, plain text printer or HTML printer. So that's the idea behind it. This way, your book is only doing its work, and printer is only doing its work. It's just printing. Printer is just concerned with printing. It does not care where it gets the page from, basically. Yeah, another very important principle would be, do not repeat yourself. It's called dry. Abbreviated to dry. What it means is, if you have same piece of code being copy pasted bunch of times, you should have that piece of code in a function and call that function wherever you want to use that code, because you might have business rules that has to be used in multiple places. You might have math formulas or long expressions that they are the same now, so you might think it's just good enough to copy paste everywhere. The problem occurs when there's a change in the business rule. Now you have to go back, change your business rule wherever you have written. That is one, it's cumbersome, because if you have, if it's a widely used business rule that is changing, you might have to change it in multiple places, 5, 10, who knows how many places it's used. And yeah, another problem would be, you might actually forget to update it in a couple of places, and that is now introducing bugs and causing all sorts of other problems. So it's important that you don't write the same piece of code more than once. To give you an example, if you look here, it there is two functions: get article for user and get comments for user. Both of them first fetches the user from backend, and what they are doing is, they are hitting an API called users and give a username, and that gives you the user JSON file, right? And the problem occurs when there is an updation on the API for users. So if say it changed to v2/users, now you have to change it in two places. User being a very common thing to fetch, it might be that there are like 50 places this API was used, and now going back, changing to 50 places is really cumbersome and error prone. uh, and that is why we should refactor to something like this, where get user, it's a function in itself which fetches the which hits the API and gives you back the user JSON. And you can use it in as many places as you want, 50, 100, there is no limit. And whenever there is an updation on the API, you just need to change it in once, and all the places it's reflected. Before I move on, there is two, contrary thoughts on dry. It's called dry, which is do not repeat yourself, and there is one more called wet code, which is write everything twice. Um, so write everything twice means that you write the same piece of code twice, but anything more than twice, you actually copy it and paste it into a function. I personally don't follow write everything twice, because then I might actually forget to um, you know uh, update my second place where I use the code and things like that. It's harder to debug. There might be inconsistencies on the same business rules. I updated one place, it's not there on the other place. Like it's, dry is easy to fix, one place, everything is in one place, it's efficient, it's concise. There is nothing to keep in my head. My head is a very volatile place for things to be. I might just forget what what I had actually copied, or it was not me, somebody else had copied, and now I might be thinking there's only one place and I copied again, now there are three copies. Things like that can happen. So I believe personally in dry, and I would highly recommend you follow dry as well instead of wet. Yeah. So to summarize, like write reusable modular, code, where you actually break down your problems into reusable chunks, or classes that has good behaviors and attributes to it, which can be combined in different ways to give the uh, output, give the desired output. Do not repeat yourself, do not duplicate code, and have good naming conventions for your methods and functions to so that you understand just by reading the function, just reading by function name, that what it's supposed to do, what might be the expected behavior of that. um, so yeah, so that was about how to write clean code. Now I'll talk a little bit about Geektrust challenges, and what are the badges that you might be able to earn. So correctness, it basically means we have a set of inputs that we will pass into your solution, and we expect certain outputs, and we just verify that everything is working fine. That's what correctness is. Build is, if you use build tools, in case of Node.js, there are a couple that are very famous, npm or yarn. We make sure that you have correct build scripts and all things like that in place, so that anybody, yeah, just sharing the code with anybody, they're able to install the dependencies and build out or run your project. That's what build is. Readability and maintainability is a very important badge that you should absolutely strive to get for. Uh, so it's about how well expressed your code is, and how well readable your code is. It's all about the topics that I just talked to you about. Write expressive names. Don't have magic numbers. Write small methods, things like that. Object modeling, it means how well model your project is. At this time we don't actually support object modeling badge for Node.js or Ruby, but yeah, but if we currently support for Java, and I think we recently went live with Python as well. Yeah, but yeah, if you're this being a Node.js event, I'm yeah, so you probably won't be seeing no object modeling, but don't worry, we don't consider that because you don't check for that. So you should absolutely strive for good modeling of your project, because we do share your code with companies, and they will download and see how well model your code is. So but yeah, so definitely do not consider it any less important. And unit tests. So unit tests are base way to be really sure about your code is doing what you think it's doing. Basically, when I talked about modularity, I talked about these things can be easily tested in isolation, and uh, the way to do that would be unit test. As the name suggests, unit test should be testing your units of uh, work, essentially. That in this case it will be single functions, or methods on a class. Yeah, and not integration tests that you give it an input and the whole you give it the entire in 4 5 commands that Geektrust expects, and you see if it's coming out or not. That's not the way to write unit test. Unit test would be checking each function and how they are performing within their specifications. You give it an input, is the output that is coming for each method correct? You should definitely write unit tests for all your public methods, and we will award unit test badge if you have uh, unit test and all of the unit tests pass, and you have 70% or more coverage on your code base with this unit test. Um, so next step, go ahead. I think we'll also shoot you an email with the links to these problems. We have a couple of problems here. One is Doremi and one is T-Rex. Uh, both of these have been recently introduced and they are fairly easy. You should be able to solve these within a couple of hours, 2 3 hours, and so you should ideally be even be able to upload the coding solution that you solve by the end of the day. you know and so now I'd like to show you how to go about, once you're done with your solution, how to go about uploading it on test. So let me just do that. I'll just share how to do that. 1 second. Yeah. So go to geektrust.com, log into your account. So in my case, I'll just log in. Yeah, you will probably land in your dashboard. On the left hand side, there is a navigation pane. Um, Go to coding challenges. These are the problem statements. This is the Doremi is at the top. If you look at it, so I'll talk about a little bit of things about Doremi. But first, I'd like to show you how to upload the code. Yeah, so imagine I have solved make space. I have not solved Doremi yet, or yeah, I think I might have. I have yeah. So I'll just yeah, but it's Java. So let me just show you how to upload Node.js. So I have a solution for make space. Um, Go select whatever problem you have solved. Go select that. And on the right hand side, you should see a submit code button. Click there. Then select the language that you have solved in. So in this case, it will be Node.js and the version of Node.js that you have solved in. So let's say I have solved it in 14, and select the build tool that you used. I have used Yarn, so I'll select Yarn, and then you navigate to the code where you have solved it. So in my case, let me just find out where I have my code. I have somewhere here. Yeah. So I have a make space yarn submission. Just upload it. And before you submit, I recommend that you do a test code here. What that does is actually it will run it through our AI, and it will give you feedback within a couple of minutes. So readability feedback has already come back. It says there are it says it does follow clean principles, and there are different feedbacks that comes in. um, and there are some negative feedbacks as well. You could go ahead and change out those as well. That will be helpful. It says my build is successful, so my build scripts are all working. I have good amount of unit tests, 58 unit tests, and I have a good coverage of 92.1, so it's very good. And yeah, so this is correctness check, where like you see these are the different inputs that we pass in. These are the inputs that we pass into your solution, and these are the expected output, and this is the output from your solution, and they should match. If it doesn't match, it will be red, and you can see what does not match, and then you can go back and change it. But if everything is working fine, you're happy with your code submission, go ahead and submit the code right here. I won't be submitting it now, but yeah, just go ahead and submit it. That will take care of it. So there is a small chance it might go to manual evaluation, in which case it might take 3 to 5 days for you to get back your badges. But most cases, our AI should be able to evaluate your code fast enough, and you should be able to see your results in 2 to 5 minutes max. Now coming to the solution that we'd like you to solve is Doremi subscription. Go inside. If you see that there are companies watching it, Big Basket, Siemens, ThoughtWorks, Navi, Scriptbox, these companies are watching for candidates who are solving these problems, and they would be interested in candidates who actually solve these problems in a clean code manner. There is a counter as well as to when the companies stop watching this, like they probably have enough submissions by that time. So it's 1 day and 12 hours right now. It's more than enough for this problem. It should not take, it should not take much time, 2 hours, 3 hours, probably. Yeah, so go read this problem, check the input output. All the input output is here. Sample input output is here that you're expected to solve. Um, and the badges you could earn are here. And another thing that I'd like you to tell you is we have now starter kits here on the right hand side. Um, we have starter kits here on the right hand side. Just click on the starter kit and select the language for which you want a starter kit. So say you're solving your problem in Node.js, just select Node.js, select a build tool for which you want the starter kit for, and just go ahead and download it. What happens is you will get a it's a template. Basically you'll get a basic code submission to start working with. I'll just show you what might be there inside it. I think this is it. Sorry. Yeah, so you'll get a zip file. Unzip that. You should get a starter kit. Just open this up. You should see there are a lot of a lot of things are done for you. So you should just be able to get started with geektrust.js file. We have some lines commented out. This is how you would we expect that you start. You read the commands that we expect that you read the commands as command line arguments, and the command line argument has to be a path to a file which will contain all the um, you know test cases that has to be run, that will be run against your submission. And yeah, so we have some sample. So this is the sample we have. So a lot of these things are already provided for you. You can just go download it, npm in npm start it, npm, I think, yeah, clean install it and start writing your code right away. You don't have to set up anything. Yeah, I highly recommend you just start using these things. Yeah, start downloading the starter kit. Yes. What else? Yeah, so we support uh, different formats of zip file, like compressed files, .zip, rar, gzip, gz formats. um, what you should be doing is only submitting your you know uh, source files. We don't want node modules or executables, stuff like that. So once you are happy with your code submission, delete node modules and then zip the project, because our system will be doing a npm install on your project. So all we need is the package.json. So everything that is needed to run the project, only those things has to be given. Things, external dependencies and things like that need not be provided. As long as you have a build script running, it should be able to our system should be able to install those things and run and build out your solution. Yeah, keep testing, keep testing, keep testing. Make sure you test as long as possible, to get to to give the best version of your solution. You could you can run test as many times as you want. There is no limits on it. Just test the code, see what feedbacks you get for different criterias. If you're happy with it, submit it. If not, go back, work on the feedback that you would have received, and come back, test it again, see what is the new result, things like that. Yeah. And yeah, finally, plagiarism. Well, do not copy anybody else's code. Do not plagiarize. You will receive a lifetime ban. If you're not able to write cleanest code, or maybe this is the first time you heard about clean code, it's okay. You writing clean code is a skill that the more you practice, you'll improve. uh, you know um, you know if this is the first time you heard, like, maybe this can be the entry point. You could just go ahead and learn more about writing clean code, and come back in 1 month's time, or 10, in 1 year's time, anything, 6 months time. anything and come back and submit them again. But if you plagiarize the code, you will lose out on all sorts of opportunities, present and future. From Geektrust, we have some amazing companies here that some which might some of you might consider dream companies. Some of the most high growth startups are working with Geektrust to find amazing developers. You will lose out on all those opportunities. We are pretty lenient with a lot of things, but plagiarism is something that we really take seriously. There is no way around it. You plagiarize, and you will lose out on all sorts of opportunities, and you will receive a lifetime ban, and you won't be able to use Geektrust ever. Yeah, so I think that concludes it. We are always here to help you guys out. Go visit help.geektrust.com for different examples and help docs on how to write clean code, how to build out your solution, and things like that. Do mail us at help@geektrust.in if you have any queries. The number you see is a WhatsApp number. We are also available on WhatsApp. You could directly text us here with any queries you might have. And yeah, that's it, folks. Thank you all for attending, and I wish you all the best. And yeah, hope to see you all solving and writing clean code. Back to you, Purnima.
Hey, thank you so much, Aneesh. And we had a great participation. And I apologize for the ones who had difficulty in joining, because we had a limit of 500 for this particular session. We'll resolve it for the next session for sure, and make sure everyone get to participate and listen to the session and ask questions. So for anyone who missed out any part of the session, we'll be sending the recording to all of you. So just repeating certain points that Aneesh had mentioned already, the coding challenges that we have suggested has been specially designed for the beginners or the learners like you all. So it's fairly comparatively easier to crack, but you can try out everything that you've learned regarding clean code, things that you're learning in your boot camps. It's an opportunity to try that out and achieve a good score. So and it would take only 2 to 3 hours. Do try it out, and we really recommend you to start working on it on this weekend. If you can submit by Sunday evening, like by 10 p.m., there is a high chance that you get lined up for interviews from Monday or Tuesday, because we have so many companies actively hiring. So you get into interviews from early next week. So please try it out. We highly recommend that. But at the same time, take your time, prepare, and go through the help docs, go through the video. We have links of the previous sessions available published in our YouTube channel. You can go and refer to that as well. So after this, in a few minutes, we'll send you all an email with the coding challenges, the links to the coding challenges, links to the help docs and the videos. So you can refer to them and start working on it. Please reach out to us if you have questions, to WhatsApp us or email us. We are available throughout the weekend to answer your questions. And once again, thanks a lot for joining us on a Saturday morning. We really appreciate your efforts and passion to learn. And yeah, all the best to everyone. See you soon. Thank you so much.